Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey, Cobwebs Caverns. I'm not expecting too many visitors today because they're running a heck of a show over there on Corey's channel. They got 5 superstars at the table, but we'll muddle through somehow. How is your day going, Cobwebs Cavern? Is the audio coming in all right? Yeah. Hey, JP Whore, welcome to the stream, man. Once again, I have no serious topic at hand. Do a random tip and maybe that'll get us into a subject. I'm recovering from this winter storm we had. We got probably 4 inches of snow and a bunch of ice, and I managed to slip and fall once. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear about your pleco, Cobwebs. What kind of pleco was it? A common? Hey Joel, Glass Boxes, welcome to the stream. Hey Valley Fish, welcome to the stream. I didn't figure many people would show up today because they're running such an excellent show over on Corey's channel right now. I'm assuming they're going to run over, and I wouldn't blame them if they did. They've got Hey Vals, welcome to the stream. They've got an excellent lineup of a mustard spot pleco, 7 inches. How old was it? Those will live 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years, won't they? Hey, Wet Sleeves, welcome to the stream. Oh, they finished it? Wow, I'm surprised. They must have had things to do, places to go, and people to be. Hey, Mary Beth, welcome to the stream. How's Mary Beth doing today? Once again, I have an overabundance of no topic, so I'm going to be dependent on you guys' questions and comments, and maybe we'll find a topic. Val says he got 3 red devils today. That's a handful of fish there, 3 red devils are. Hey, Rob Hicks, welcome to the stream. And why am I not at the Coop studio? I'm not sure exactly. I seem to be on the outs of a lot of these things. Part of my problem is that I run XSplit, and XSplit doesn't seem to play very nicely. XSplit is the app that I use to run my show with, and XSplit doesn't seem to play very nicely with Google Hangouts. And in other words, it won't use it at all, and that seems to keep me out of a lot of live streams and a lot of people's shows, so maybe that has something to do. I think Corey has Wirecast, and I think XSplit will do Wirecast just fine, but so far that's just not happened. Cobweb Cavern says I got him from another fish keeper, so not sure, but he was big when I got him, and everyone else's in the tank is okay, no water parameter issues, so maybe just his time. Yeah, it's it's you know, if we actually sit down and average out the regular lifespan of fish in the wild, if we keep our fish alive for more than 2 or 3 years, we are far exceeding what normally is the average in the wild. So, you know, when we talk about potential lifespan of fishes in our tanks, we need to take into consideration that you know, maybe they're not going to live that long. Maybe there's something going on that keeps them from living that long in our tanks. But it's just our job as fish keepers to try to keep them alive and thriving as long as we can. Glass Boxes says, I'm sick of maintaining my 20-odd small tanks and thinking of reducing instead to, say, 6 large tanks. Think that'll make life easier. Hey, Jeremy, welcome to the stream, man. Joel, 6 large tanks is probably going to be about the same amount of work as 20 small tanks. And my experience is that when you set those 6 large tanks up, that you will end up with breeding potential and the sorts of things that will cause you to once again use those 20 small tanks. Our hobby is multiple tank syndrome is an easy access from a few fish tanks to way too many fish tanks. So I'm not sure that going to 6 large tanks is going to reduce your workload that much. If you had a automatic water changer, it might. Heather, welcome to the stream. Heather at Varuna Aquatics. Welcome to the stream. I don't recognize your name, but you are more than welcome here. There are a plethora of excellent people in this chat. I can recommend that you check them all out. If you do not know these names of the people in the chat, I would recommend that you check them and their channels out. There is a great deal of knowledge here. Well, Heather, I'm not sure you should be excited. I'm not usually something to get too excited about. I'm just an old fish keeper trying to help. Sharon Gregory, welcome to the stream, man. And good evening to you as well. I'm kind of, Joel has piqued my interest with his thinking that going to 6 large tanks will ease his workload from carrying 20 smaller tanks. And what I envision is that not only will you have 6 large tanks to take care of, but that 20 small tanks will slowly be repopulated. And you'll end up with 6 large tanks and 20 small tanks to take care of. So I'm going to come down on the side of 6 large tanks are not going to reduce your workload. What they're going to do is to increase your water footprint to the point where you actually have 6 large tanks now and the 20 small tanks reset up to house fry and various breeding projects from the 6 larger tanks. Nisi says, and by the way, welcome Nisi as always, that Doug's working on his videos. I'll tell him you're live, you're his favorite live stream, you're down to earth and very knowledgeable. Well, that is great praise, Nisi. Tell Doug thank you very much. I don't have much to offer, but I try my best to deliver what little I know. I've told you more than I already know is the idiomatic expression to describe my broadcast. Um, but I take that as great praise that I'm Doug's favorite live streamer. There are many, many, many great live streamers out there, and to be included in that number is a great honor. Jay's Crazy Obsession, welcome to the stream, man. We once again have no topic, and we're just winging it, which is basically where I'm at these days. Wet Sleeve says you have so much to offer. You have experience, more value in that than anyone can have. Well, I have oodles of experience. I'll grant you that. Some of it's good, some of it's bad, but I'm more than willing to share. Glass Boxes says he's run out of walls. Well, you'll find new walls, Joel. I mean, I'm all for you getting 6 larger tanks and putting them in place of your 20 small tanks, because the 6 larger tanks will offer your fish a higher water volume, which will in turn give you a better chance at keeping your fish thriving. 20 small tanks, you have to do a lot of quick water changes to keep them going. But when you get into larger tanks, 55s, 75s, 120s, what have you, you're going to have a larger buffer between you and disaster with your tanks by having your fish in a larger water volume. So I'm all for you going to 6 larger tanks. I just figure you'll find more wall space to set the 20 little ones up when you need them. And you will need them. Something will start breeding in one of your tanks. You'll have a overrun of fry. You'll decide to try to cull and breed for select breeding purposes. And pretty soon those 20 smaller tanks will be full once again. Cobweb Caverns says bigger tank is always the first tip I give to new fish keepers. Easier to maintain stable water parameters. Yeah, I concur wholeheartedly. I always try to tell people to over-tank their fish, not overstock their tanks, because your fish will benefit from that larger water volume. Sergeant Tanks Jeremy says experience over entertainment. Just keep being me. That's all I can be, Jeremy. There is no second gear with me. I'm basically what you see is what you get. Damon Markham, welcome to the stream. I just tested phosphates for the first time. It is 2.0. Is that good, bad, or indifferent? And I've got to admit that I have never tested for phosphates in any of my tanks. So I don't know if 2.0 is good, bad, or indifferent. Perhaps someone else in the stream has more experience testing for phosphates. The one thing that I do know about phosphates is if they get low in your tank, in other words, your plants don't have enough phosphates to keep their engines running, that you will end up with green spot algae on the glass of your tanks. It's little tiny green circles, and they are very difficult to scrape off. And those always are an indication of low phosphates. We get enough phosphates normally out of the foods that we feed, that it's not usually something that you need to heavily fertilize to keep phosphates up in the water column for your plants. But I have got to admit, you've got me in a corner that I have no real information on from experience to give you. I have never tested for phosphates for as long as I've been keeping fish. Jeremy, have you ever tested for phosphates? Anybody? Rob Hicks? Heather, Varuna Aquatics, cool looking channel. I like it, so I sub you. Good work. So there you go, Varuna. You, Heather from Varuna Aquatics. You're gathering subs here. Jeremy chimes in that he's never tested for phosphates either. I've got to admit, that is a new one on me. I am well aware that there are test kits for phosphates out there. Maybe it would be more important in a marine aquarium, and I'm just guessing here that phosphates would be more important for Wet Sleeve says, I don't test for anything, just follow all the rules, lots of plants, huge cleanup crew, and a small number of fish. That's a great way to run a fish room. Looks like Wet Sleeves and Cobwebs are both from Scotland. That sounds like a close matchup for you guys. I would encourage you to touch base with each other. And Cobwebs is saying that I'm right, that phosphate tests are aimed at marine tanks. I seem to remember, I read a lot of magazines, I read a lot of literature on freshwater fish keeping, and because of that I've crossed paths with a lot of stuff on salt tanks as well, although I have read them and followed them from afar, because I've never had the desire to cross over into salt, just because of the unbelievable expense that it entails to keep saltwater fish. And remember that I come at this from the 70s and the 80s. In the 70s and the 80s, marine tanks were something of an enigma, because it was impossible at that time to breed fish in a saltwater tank. Impossible in the sense that no one had any idea how to do it. And because of that, it meant that all fish that were in tanks had to be wild caught. And so there was a bit of a stigma applied to salt keeping back in that time frame. And not only that, but the extra cost of the, for me to set up one large salt tank with all the equipment and all the extra stuff that goes with it. Hey, Kyle's Wild World, welcome to the stream, man. I could set up 5 regular freshwater fish tanks for the same amount of money, and because of that, I have always stayed freshwater. Saltwater tanks have some of the most beautiful fish that you'll ever see anywhere, and some of the most interesting stuff, but it's just never been something that I wanted to try. Jay's Crazy Obsession says, I did heavy metal tests when I first moved into my apartments, but I never tested phosphate. Can you just buy strips for that? I'm not sure that I've ever seen a phosphate strip test. Damon Markin replies, thanks everyone. I don't test much, but picked one up anyway. I'm getting into shrimp and plants and looking to expand my knowledge. I first started keeping shrimp about 8 months ago, because of following Lucas Bretz. And Damien, I would highly recommend that you look up Lucas Bretz on YouTube and study his shrimp keeping. Lucas has won several awards for his shrimp. He's in Indianapolis, here in Indiana, as well as I am, although he's 150 miles from me. But I would recommend highly that you follow his advice. It's different from some that you will find. We've got Mark Shrimp that I would highly recommend. Flip Aquatics. Rob is a great shrimp importer and shrimp keeper, and I would highly recommend following him as well. There are some great shrimp keeping channels on YouTube, and I would recommend that you search them out. I've given you 3 that I think would set you well on your way. And Damien, my main piece of advice for keeping a shrimp tank is to set the tank up far in advance and allow it to get to the stage where there is algae growing on the glass and the decorations in the tank. Depending on which kind of shrimp you're going to keep, if it's Neocaridina, I would recommend a harder water. If you have very soft tap water, then I would recommend Caridina, although I think they are more difficult to keep. I have never kept them. And if you've got an RO unit, you can keep Caridina even if your water is hard. But I would recommend that you set the tank up 2 months in advance, let algae start growing, let the tank be well mature before you put your shrimp in, and that you study the water parameters. Dave McMeany says, hey Dwayne from freezing Ireland, I know how that freezing feeling is. Lumpy Dog's in the house. Welcome to the stream, Lumpy Dog. Kyle's Wild World asked me how those green jades are doing. Kyle, the green jades were doing fine until I went to Jimmy's house and got all of those large rainbows and brought them home and dropped them in the same tank with all those green jades, and the green jades promptly disappeared. So I'm guessing that some of those rainbows had some very expensive $8 meals, eating large green jade shrimp. We have not seen one in probably 6 months. So my guess is there are no more green jades in my wife's tank. And let that be a lesson.
I'll happily take donations.
Rob Hicks asked, got any ideas for new fish in a 20 long with 4 electric blue rams and 10 neon tetras? A 20 long has a pretty decent air to water ratio footprint in it, so you're probably not overstocked right now, but it wouldn't take many fish to overstock it. I would probably recommend some Cory cats. Get a school of 6 or 7 Cory cats and drop them in and see how that all works out, because you will have bottom, mid, and top water all covered then. But Rob, as you well know, this is your tank, and you are going to have to look at it and take care of it. So I would highly recommend that you make that choice. And Jazz Jay's Crazy Obsession says, Rob, a bushy-nosed pleco. I would agree with that. Tanks, the rummy-nosed man, is recommending rummy nose, and I would say in a 20 long with 14 fish, you could probably put a school of 10 or 12 rummy nose in there too. And Kyle is bringing up a very good point. With German blue rams requiring warm water, and so he's right that you should probably pick fish that. But a bushy-nosed pleco would be fine with that. Most Corydoras would be fine with, near 80-degree water, and Cobwebs Caverns is recommending stir-by Corys to go with the higher temperatures. Yes, I think rummy nose would be all right at that temp. They may really require it to be a little cooler, rummy nose. They're known. Oh, Danks is saying he keeps his rams at 80 with rummy nose. All right. Dank, I was just watching, before Corey's stream started, a video from 2013 where the Fluval team went to Colombia, and they were showing rummy nose in a whitewater, strong flow. I mean rapids. And I have never seen rummies in that kind of water flow before. So I'm beginning to think that maybe rummy nose might require more water flow. I have seen videos where people have found rummy nose in small ponds of water with no water movement in them, and they seem to do just fine. But I was really shocked to see them rummy nose at the bottom of a rapid of a really strongly flowing stream. And by the way, I would recommend that video to anybody. It's something Fluval team goes to Colombia, and it's 2013 was the date on it. And Kyle is hitting exactly my point, that can a species of fish come from multiple types of waterways then? Of course, dry and wet seasons would have an effect on this. And yes, Kyle, I think that it is incredibly important that as fish keepers we recognize that a lot of our fish come from streams and rivers that can both be low in the dry season and not as well oxygenated and much smaller water volumes, that then when the rainy season hits become a muddy torrent, and our fish that we're keeping survive both of those conditions. So yes, it is possible that the same species of fish can adapt to different types of water parameters in the sense of flow and oxygenation and clear or cloudy. Jay's Crazy Obsession says, Kyle at Dwain, the blue Acaras and mollies are working out. I went with almost an inch Acara and a male and 4 female black mollies. All grow and breeding. Thanks. Well, that sounds like it worked out pretty well, Jays. You'll have to keep us up to date so that we see how it works out in the long run. Lumpy Dog says would go with a few cherry barbs to go into Rob's tank. Might look really nice. Yeah, cherry barbs would add a lot of color. I'm not sure cherry barbs like that much heat, though. They come from Indonesia, so It's possible that it's that warm there too. I'd have to check up on that. And Tank says, I mean, just the shape of Rummy's body suggests that they are current swimmers. I agree, Dank. And yet, in most of the videos that you will find, you find rummy nose in little ponds of water that have no flow, no discernible flow to them, that are dependent on rainfall for their water, and very little current around them. So it's kind of difficult to decide which way to keep them, in the sense of which way are they going to do best. And Kyle's is saying, Jay's awesome, happy to hear that. One Akara, he should do good. If you add another Akara, you can get issues, in my experience. And yes, that's one of the things I think we told him when he was first asking this question. Mary Beth says, great laundry and dishes from the 500 book, tip 229 on page 60 should be a good topic. Okay, here, let me unpile my pile here. Ugh. Yikes. I think I made it. And Mary Beth is recommending 229 for a tip. This is interesting that people are offering tips from the book that I've been using tips out of, because they now have their own copies. So let's go with Mary Beth's offering of tip 229, better fish buying. Pick a quiet time to go shopping. Try to visit aquatic stores midweek, when business is fairly quiet and staff have more time to discuss your needs. On a busy weekend, the retailer may advise you to return when he or she can spend more time guiding you through the choice of fish on offer. It is in the retailer's interest to look after the customers, whatever their level of knowledge. That's an interesting tip. That shows some real experience. And that is, of course, from 500 Ways to Be a Better Freshwater Fish Keeper. Good tip, Mary Beth. While the book is not the best money you can spend on books in the fish keeping hobby, I think that it is a really interesting take, that they've gathered together several experts: Mary Bailey, Sean Evans, Nick Fletcher, Andy Green, Peter Hiscock, Pat Lambert, and Anna Robinson, that are experts in their own fields, and gathered them all together to get them to give different and varying tips about freshwater fish keeping. And these tips go from basic to advanced, and they offer us as fish keepers a little checklist to run through and see if we are hitting all these high points, see if we are advancing our skill. And I especially like tips that I don't really completely grasp on first reading, and that later on, as I become more experienced in the hobby, the tips seem to become more clear to me and make more sense. Nothing better than having a little kernel of information that suddenly pops up in your memory bank and you recognize a better use for it. Hey, Vinyl Richie, welcome to the stream, man. How's your morning going? I saw that you said that you've been working the late shift, I guess, and been sleeping through the live stream, and I don't blame you a bit, man. Sleep is much more important. Um, let's see. Cobweb Cavern says most fish are captive bred and just used to slower flow tank conditions. I think that that's true, Cobwebs, but it doesn't mean that we don't need to offer them some of their native conditions. Just because they can live in conditions that we create doesn't mean that they are thriving. And if we can match their thriving conditions, then we give them a better chance to breed and live out their normal lives. And Kyle is saying, true, they can and do adapt to new conditions within a few generations. Yeah, I know that they adapt, but I think that is the key word, that they are having to adapt to a new condition. And if we can provide them a more natural environment, surely that makes them a happier fish in our tank. I don't know that to be true, but I just feel that way. That, you know, Eric Bodrock's moniker is "Be the Fish." So what we're trying to do as fish keepers is to be the fish in the sense of what is it that the fish needs and wants. What is it? What aren't we providing to give them the best conditions possible? And Val says if you want to see rare lines of guppies, check out the channel called, is that supposed to be Flowerhorn? Oh no, he says Fowerhorn. Fowerhorn fish. Spelt exactly like that. It seems like a misspelling of Flowerhorn, but I guess maybe he has some reason. So I guess maybe we need to go check out rare lines of guppies on Fowerhorn fish. Cobweb says wet sleeves depends on what you want. Of the Paisley Road West shops, Waterworld is the best. Aqua Parade is okay. The little family shop on Butter Biggs Road is good for basic stuff. So there you go, guys. We're getting Cobwebs to give us a shopping trip highlight for in case any of us get across the pond or are already there. Dank says, I think it's a combo of predator evasion and fast water. Yeah, that's probably true. Cobweb says, I agree with you, Dwayne, but I think that some of the fish have now been tank bred for so long that they have moved away from the wild needs. And there's probably a great deal of truth in that as well. It's probably somewhere in the middle. My own personal feeling is that every time I set up a fish tank, I want to give them as much of what they have in the wild as possible, because I just really feel like that's where they're at home, you know, and that's what I'm trying to do, is give my fish. And Cobweb says, if anyone ever visits Glasgow, Scotland, and wants a tour guide, let me know. And that's a wonderful offer, Cobwebs, and you might be surprised if at the number of people that might show up and want that tour. Pretty soon you'll be putting up a price tag alongside of it. Rob says farm bred are overbred, and I believe would be happy as the conditions it was bred in, if that makes sense. And yes, it does make sense. Joel asked me, Dwayne, are you on track with all your preparations for Peru? And in a sense I am, and in a sense I am not. We got hit with major financial smack to the face this month to start the year off with, and that's going to set me behind on getting my plane tickets. Plane tickets are next, and they're going to be about $1,700, and we just laid out for a brand new heater, and the installation, and that's set us back unexpectedly. So in a sense I am on time, and in a sense I'm not on time. I'm going to have to waylay my ticket buying for another month at least. Wet Sleeves is asking, are you part of any of the aquatic societies at Cobwebs? So he's asking about Scotland area clubs, and I'm sure that would be great. Val says, Kyle's, have you got a Facebook group? And Kyle is in several Facebook groups. I'm not sure if he has his own. I don't remember whether it's his or someone else's. Cobweb says, no, I'm not Wet Sleeves, but the society out of Cumbernauld have a show in March featuring Heiko Blair, and he would definitely recommend that, and I would second that motion. Of all the people in the fish hobby, I value Heiko Blair as much as anyone, and I would definitely recommend trying to gain as much personal knowledge from Heiko Blair as you possibly can. Maybe if you have one of his books, you can get it signed. Cobweb says, good pronunciation, Dwayne. I spent a great deal of time listening to that Fluval video, listening to that guy pronounce the Latin names, and I spent a great deal of time laughing at my own mispronunciation of those names, listening to him pronounce them correctly. I do my best. I'm not well versed enough in the Latin names of fish to get the pronunciation right. Val says, who you value most in the hobby, Dwayne? I go a little old school, Vals. If you're asking me that question, I'm a little more old school than most of the newer people that are out. I value names like Lee Finley, like Wayne Liebel. Oh gosh, brain fart time. Sorry, I'm looking up names. Greg Sage. Being old sucks. You can't remember names. Don't come easily to your memory banks like they should. You think about them, but they just won't pop into your head. And Ted Judy was who I was looking for. People like that are more my generation of hobbyists, and are people that I look up to because they were people that I looked up to a long time ago. People whose careers that I followed, whose articles I read. Wet Sleeve says he's only 29 and he gets that same problem. Oh man, Wet Sleeves, I hate to tell you what you're in for when you turn 60 then, if you're already having trouble remembering names at 29. Okay, so Cobwebs is saying that I pronounced the name correctly, and I recognize that, Cobwebs, and he's giving me a tricky one. And is that Eclafashon? And Tina Brunch. Wet Sleeve says he'll never turn 60. That's famous last words, buddy. You should be so lucky to turn 60, man. You're not even 30 yet. You need to make it to 60. We need fish keepers to stay alive as long as possible. And I'll be waiting on Cobwebs to tell me how badly I did. I can't pronounce that, and I'm Scottish. Eee. That's pretty bad. Ekelfecken? Ekelfecken. That almost sounds bad. Ekelfecken. I don't know what you're Ekelfecken talking about. Tina Bruach. Tina Bruach.
In Latin, CH is hard like a K.
Yeah, he's given me Scottish. He posted the name of a town where some fish stores were, and I tried to pronounce it. He said I did pretty good. Tina Bruach. A wee tin of brew. Well, Scottish pronunciation is not something that I claim. Yeah, she's far smarter than I am, Cobwebs. So I do listen. I'm better on street sense than she is, but she's far smarter. The brains in the family are with her. And I acknowledge that easily. I've been playing with this light and I've still not got it right. It's either too bright or it's not bright enough. Okay, guys, we're rounding the turn towards the end of the show. So if you've got some questions or comments to make, please make them. I'm honored, of course, that you guys have chosen to spend a little time with me on your valuable Saturday, and especially that poor Richie woke up just in time to jump online and join a live stream that's not about vinyl at all. Richie, if you're still on, and I could understand why if you dropped off and gone to breakfast. I'm looking forward to your perfect side videos. But let's get some questions in, because I'm at the end of my rope for things to talk about. See if I've missed something. Doesn't look like it. Ah, still there. Go eat you some breakfast, Richie. Man, I wouldn't blame you a bit. Working the night shift is a hard way to go. Yeah, I eat fish. I love fish. I'm looking forward to eating some species that I would normally keep in a tank when I go to Peru. I guess that's kind of like eating animal crackers, but most of these fish that we value as tank denizens in different parts of the world, in some part of the world they are part of the menu. It's what natives catch to live on, and we value them as aquarium fish to keep and to watch and to take care of. But yes, I eat fish. I especially love pompano and red snapper. Those are two fish that I relish. I've eaten a ton of catfish in my lifetime. There's not much better than fresh caught, fresh cooked catfish. Um, Wet Sleeves is asking me what my favorite plant is. And to be perfectly honest with you, I have a very much brown thumb. I manage to kill most of the plants that I buy. I don't know whether it's through lack of nutrients that the plants need or what. So my favorite plant is mosses. I have really started to enjoy mosses and subwassertang and those kinds of plants because they are actually plants that I can grow and thrive. Joe P., welcome to the stream. And he says, Dwayne, how's the heat? Joe P., we purchased a 3-ton, 90% efficiency Linux heat unit and had it installed. We're now running on PVC for our exhaust. We have a condensation collector that drops into our sump pump cistern in the bottom of the basement. So a lot of the condensation is being pulled out and drained. The heater double uses the heat. Instead of it all going out the exhaust pipes, it is rechanneled back into the burner can and gives off its heat once again. And the heat has been wonderful. We've got much more airflow. We've got much more even heating throughout the house. We've been really lucky, and we've had some really seriously cold weather, so it's been a great blessing, but it was also a great expense to get it all done, and an expense we just weren't ready for, really. But all that being said, knock on wood, we're glad to have the heat. Wet Sleeves says, what about swans? They're talking about eating anything. Rabbit, horse, pigeon. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd like pigeon very much. I don't think I've ever eaten squab, and I'm not sure I would really care for it. Rabbit, I'm not a real big fan of. Horse, I would eat in a pinch. Joe P. says, how did I notice it was rusted out? Because searching for a way to save money, I came across notices of HARP additions to your loans. I clicked on a button and suddenly I was on a Quicken Rocket Loan page, and I was suddenly in the process of being in a loan process, and I decided since I was already there, I'd go ahead and walk it out and see how that process turned out. And we didn't qualify for a HARP, but we qualified for an FHA, but that included an FHA inspector coming out. And while at the beginning I thought I would pass with flying colors, the more I studied the FHA loan process and how strict they were, the more I began to realize that I was probably going to fail an FHA loan inspection. And the FHA loan inspection prompted me to clear out the pathway and go to the basement. And that's when I noticed the rusted out exhaust pipes, that we had a serious carbon monoxide leak going on. So I wasted money on the loan process because it did not pan out, and I did indeed fail the FHA. inspection because of a lot of different places of scaling paint and other things. And yet that $500 was not really wasted because it probably saved my wife and I's life, because it forced me into the basement to recognize that that carbon monoxide was leaking very badly in our basement. So that's basically how that happened. All right, guys, we're right at the top of the hour. Since there's no more questions in, I'm going to have to bid you adieu and wish you a wonderful rest of the weekend and a fine rest of your Saturdays. Cobwebs, as always, thanks for your attendance to these streams and your great wealth of knowledge that, yes, wet slaves, carbon monoxide was going to kill us, and I did not know that it was that bad until I got down into the basement and saw just how bad it was. I immediately turned off the heat, and we ended up, because I couldn't repair it that night, we ended up having a day with no heat. Thanks, Vals. You guys have a good weekend. And Happy New Year, everyone.